Good afternoon, girls. Today we are learning the chapter expansion of democracy, and we have two, segments in that. One is Libya and one is Myanmar. So here we'll talk about why democracy could not flourish there in these two countries. So this is a test case about democracies, and unfortunately in these two countries, that is Libya and Myanmar. By the way, where is Libya?
In Africa.
Not Africa. This is a rough African map made by one of our students, Afra. And okay, where is Myanmar?
In Asia.
In Asia.
Beside it, matlab.
Yeah, it is a neighboring country, and it is near northeast of India, right? So forget about Myanmar. First, we'll learn about
Libya.
What happened? Like India were colonized by Britishers. Libya was colonized by Italy. Yeah, Italy. So, like India became free in 1947 as a result of Second World War. Similarly, after Second World War, decolonization happened in many countries. Means colonial powers like British, France and Italy and some other European countries, they ended their colonies, and this process is called as decolonization. Like colonial powers leaving the countries which they colonized is called as decolonization, and it is a big fallout of Second World War. So like decolonization happened everywhere, it happened in Africa also. So in the year 1951, Libya became free. Libya. So when Italians went from Libya, one person became king of Libya. His name, any guesses?
Idris.
King Idris. So in 1951, King Idris became the ruler of Libya, and he continued for over a decade, I think, and his rule was not very perfect. There was nepotism, there was corruption, and so many things were there. He was, and so in society also, many problems were there. For example, women were confined to their houses, and Parda was strictly implemented, and it was a tribal society, and he was ruling with some of his few, close people. So that continued. But in 1960s, late 1960s, precisely in the year 1969, there was a military coup in Libya, and the leader of that coup was Muammar Gaddafi. So Muammar Gaddafi was a very young military officer that time. So he led a coup, military coup. What is coup? Yes, Bagawat, revolt. And that Bagawat was against, that coup was against King Idris. So he fled the country, and a new government, a new regime came to rule in Libya. So they formed a body of some officers, and they ruled, and their rule was better than King Idris in many ways. For example, in Muammar Gaddafi's reign, that is period, many things improved in Libya. For example, life expectancy in average age increased, literacy rate increased. This Muammar Gaddafi military government provided housing on subsidy. You understand subsidy?
Yes.
Government help you in making something. Suppose a house is 10 lakh rupees, they will give 5 lakh rupees, something like that is called a subsidy. Like we get gas subsidy.
Yes.
So his rule was better, and he ruled with a council, a body that is called as RCC,
Revolutionary
Command Council, right?
Yes.
So they continued to rule. They provided so many things, and there was pressure from outside world. There was pressure from outside world for democracy.
Yes.
For democracy, West pressure was there. To satisfy that pressure, the European countries and all, sometimes they put sanctions also. Sanctions, you understand? Pabandiyan.
Yes.
You cannot trade, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. These are sanctions. So to avoid those sanctions, Muammar Gaddafi held elections also, and they formed some local governments also, councils. But that was just a sham. That was for namesake. Real power lied with RCC. And that was the time when oil boom was there in Middle East, in many Middle East and North Africa. This area is called as MENA region. Middle East here and Africa, North Africa. Oil boom was there. So oil, discovered, and wherever there are resources, fights will be there, wars will be there. Like we see today, Yemen war.
Yes.
In a way, that is for resources. All wars mostly. So Libya was also, there was a power struggle. Western countries wanted to control Libya, so they were putting pressure, and RCC was ruling. But Muammar Gaddafi and RCC ruled for a long time. I think almost 4 decades. They continued to rule. He provided many things. It was a welfare government in a way, but one thing was lacking, that he was not allowing people to express their views. Freedom of expression was not there. You cannot criticize the government, right? Freedom of expression was not there. So people wanted that also, but that was very difficult because wherever monarchies are there and dictators are there, they are very harsh and they cannot tolerate criticism. So he was also very intolerant that way. So some people were not happy with him, and there was allegation that RCC and their family members and nepotism is there. The wealth of oil that is coming, and that was not being fully utilized for people. Maybe like Muammar Gaddafi and his close people were utilizing more. There were some allegations, and because of strict media control and all, criticism was not allowed. So in that scenario, this continued from 1969 and to 2010. In 2010, December, there was an incident that changed Middle East and North Africa and maybe the entire world forever. And that process is called as Arab Spring. You ever heard Yemen war is going on and Syria war? Anybody knows Syria war? Syria war was fought for 10 years. Still some problems are there in Syria. That is as a result of Arab Spring, right?
Yes.
So what was Arab Spring and how and when and where it started? It started in December 2010 from a small country in North Africa called Tunisia. Here it is Tunisia. What happened in Tunisia? There was a leader, like in Libya for a long time, Muammar Gaddafi was ruling.
Yes.
Similarly in Tunisia, one leader, he was not a king but a dictator. His name was Zainul Abidin bin Ali. And he was very corrupt. His family, especially his wife's family, Laila Travelsi was her name. They were very corrupt. They were very corrupt and they were looting the country. They were utilizing the resources for themselves. How was the corruption level at that time in Tunisia? With one example, you can understand that. Laila Travelsi, the wife of Zainul Abidin bin Ali, suppose if she is craving for ice cream, for particular ice cream, she used to call a special plane. In that, she used to sit in the plane, go to some European country. Europe is very near from Tunisia.
Yes.
So she used to go to some European country, have ice cream and come back again in the plane. That was the level of corruption they were enjoying. And because of that, people were becoming poor and the rulers and close people to rulers were becoming rich. Laila Travelsi and her family, Travelsi family, were enjoying all the fruits of oil and all those things. So there was a resentment or anger in the people. People were not happy, right, with that system. And he was ruling, Zainul Abidin bin Ali was ruling from 1987. So he also ruled almost maybe more than 30 years, right?
Yes.
Or close to 30 years he ruled. So in 2010, everything was gonna change. What happened? In Tunisia, the capital city of Tunisia, one person who was a small fruit vendor, vegetable vendor, he was standing on a road selling something, fruits and vegetables on his cart. One policeman came and he shouted at him and he thrown all the vegetables on the road and he asked him to go, leave that place, because he said that yes, you are not allowed to sell your things here on the road. So that poor man was so, in pain because of that incident that immediately he poured kerosene or petrol on himself and he set himself on fire. So that was the time when social media was very new. Now it's very common, but that time it was new. And mostly Facebook was there. Now you have Instagram and so many others. But that time mostly Facebook was there, and that was a new era. So people shared that incident on Facebook, and it spread like wildfire. And suddenly people came on streets and protests again. They had protests against Zainul Abidin bin Ali, and protest was so huge that the whole country, all people came on streets. And looking at the mood and sensing the mood of the people, Zainul Abidin bin Ali, the leader of Tunisia who was ruling for 30 years, he fled Tunisia and he fled to Saudi Arabia. From Tunisia he went to Saudi Arabia in hiding. Like he went on self-exile because he was afraid that if I continue to stay here, they may kill me. So he fled, and recently, maybe a year ago, he died natural death in Saudi Arabia. Right? So as a result of that, there was a revolution. People came on the streets. After some time, elections were held. A new party was formed, and a party was, a democratic government came there. Many people talked and held elections, and I think the party which came to power is known as Al-Nahda Party. So during that year, in 2011 or 12, I think, the people who work for democracy in Tunisia, they were given Nobel Peace Prize also. So when this happened in Tunisia, this particular Tunisian revolution is called as Jasmine Revolution. Jasmine is a flower. So maybe that is the national flower of that country, I don't know, but that is called as Jasmine Revolution. So when this happened, that immediately inspired and affected other countries. For example, it spread to Libya, Egypt, Syria, Yemen, even Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain. Many countries, people came on streets and started protesting against their governments, mostly kings. Like in Saudi Arabia, king is there. In Bahrain, king is there. In Syria, a long-time dictator was there called Hosni Mubarak. So people came on streets. In Egypt also. In Egypt also government changed. The person who was ruling for decades, called Hosni Mubarak, he left the job and there was a revolution. Election happened. A new party called Ikhwanul Muslimun, or Muslim Brotherhood, came. And what happened? Muslim Brotherhood won the election and it completed 1 year in power. But again, a military coup happened in Egypt, and military leader came to power, and he is still there. His name is Abdul Fattah al-Sisi. So in Egypt this happened, and people came on streets in Yemen also. Yemen is somewhere here. Saudi Arabia, beneath Saudi Arabia, Yemen is there. Yes, Oman and Yemen are there. So there also, long-time leader Ali Abdullah Saleh, his power ended. So similarly, we are dealing with only Egypt here, Libya here. So in Libya, people came on streets and started protesting against
Where?
Against which leader?
Zainul Abidin.
King Idris.
In Libya.
Muhammad.
Muammar Gaddafi. People came on streets against Muammar Gaddafi, which is the capital of Libya, Tripoli. But it started in a city called Benghazi. Benghazi is a city. Yeah, and it spread to other cities, including Tripoli. And now a civil war started against the government by different people. And because many people, many countries in the world hated Muammar Gaddafi, especially America and Europe. There is an army of America and European countries called NATO. Ever heard?
Yes.
NATO.
Yes.
What is the full form of NATO? It is a military alliance of America and its allies, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. Recently in Ukraine war also we heard this term NATO, I think. So NATO and NATO helped people in Libya who were fighting against Muammar Gaddafi. Earlier they were protesting, but these people, NATO and America, they gave them weapons to fight. So now the fight continued for many months. So this happened in this Tunisia thing happened in 2010, and this happened in 2011, early 2011. So the war continued, civil war continued. Looking at the mood of the people and the power of the opponents, supported by Europeans and Americans, he fled. Muammar Gaddafi fled, and he was hiding in a small pit hole. Muammar Gaddafi, the leader who ruled for 40 years, was hiding in a small place, pit hole. So somebody saw him in October, I think. I'm not very sure, it can be 1 month or 2 months here and there. But in October 2011, Muammar Gaddafi was caught and immediately he was killed. Right? So a country where Muammar Gaddafi ruled for 40 years, he met his fate that way. He was killed, and you can see the pictures of his being killed or after his death. You can see the body, how bad shape it was in. So as a result, now European countries and American countries wanted to have a democratic setup there, but Libya is a tribal society, different tribes are there, people don't accept each other in that, right? So that proved to be a very bad experience in Libya. As a result, so this happened in 2011 and this is 2022, right? We are in 2022. Still, there is no one government or democratic government in Libya. People are still fighting. Different groups, different tribes are fighting each other. Some countries are fighting one group, some countries are fighting another group. And this is continuing for so long and people are suffering. And this shows that democracy could not be established. And even elections held, but elections was just it was a sham elections. Like not many people accepted it. So fight is still going on. The internationally recognized government of Libya is confined to capital Tripoli only. Right? Different groups are fighting. Different countries are supporting different groups for their own interest. Saudi Arabia is supporting some group, America is supporting some group, Iran is supporting some group, like that. Fighting is still going on. This shows that democracy is not established in Libya even now. So this is the story of our one part of our chapter. This is about Libya, and this whole process is called as Arab Spring. And because of Arab Spring, in Yemen also there is a war going on now. We don't need to go into detail, right? In Bahrain also, in Bahrain one family is ruling. The name of the family is Al Khalifa family. People came on the street. Saudi Arabia, with the help of Saudi army, they crushed that rebellion. there is some, in Syria, also people wanted to remove one person, President Bashar al-Assad. There was a civil war from 2011 to recently. Even now some problem is there. But he survived. President Bashar al-Assad survived. Right? So what I'm trying to say that this was a significant year in the world. Because so many revolts happened. Somewhere it was successful, somewhere it was a disaster. Sometimes I call this Arab Spring as Arab Autumn, not Spring, because Spring is a positive thing. And it was not good, it was not rosy all the time. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, there is a difference between, like we talked about Syria and we talked about Bahrain. The difference between Syria and Bahrain is, in Bahrain, Shia population is more and ruler is a Sunni. And in Syria, Sunni population is more and ruler is a Shia. So people came on the streets and all. The fact is, neither in Bahrain, neither in Syria, they could change the government or whatever system is there. In Bahrain, monarchy is there. In Syria, one party called not Nazi party, Baath party is there. So they continued, but many governments changed, especially in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Yemen. In Yemen also war is still going on. We don't have to go into detail. Any question about Libya or this whole thing?
No, sir.
Any questions?
No, sir.
You understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll end and next time we'll talk about Myanmar.
Myanmar.
Right.
Yes.